gleam and glow. Let your power shine. Save what has been lost. Bring back what once was mine. What once was mine. It's time to talk about one of my absolute favorite Disney princesses. Like, for sure in the top 5, but by top 5 I mean that they're all tied as my top favorite because I'm really bad at favorites. But also, this is the one that I am compared to the most, so she holds a very special place in my heart. But anyway, if you're new here, hi there! My name is Sydney. I use they, them pronouns despite looking like a Disney princess right now, and also frequently your gender expression is not your gender. I make videos about autism, disability, media analysis, and the occasional queer thing and or fashion thing, and if you would like to stick around, I would love to have you here. We have fun. Maybe. Today we're going to talk about Rapunzel and see what things make her autistic. And as I say in every single one of my princess profiles, my analysis of characters through the lens of neurodivergency does not give you permission to go around and armchair diagnose people. We do this as a way to find different kinds of representation of autism in media so that we can see autistic people in the world as more multifaceted and human than your typical cis white boy who trained do math. You know? Also, if you want to see my other princess profiles, you can find them in a playlist that is up here. You're also so welcome to watch any of my other videos where I don't talk like a Disney princess. This is just a thing that happens in every single one of these videos, and I don't know what to do about it, but it's gonna fade as time goes on. Anyway, if you're unfamiliar with the plot of Tangled, I'm so sorry. The movie is a delight, and every song's an absolute banger, so you should check it out. But basically, there's this magic flower that an evil lady named Mother Gothel went to all the time, and it had a special glow that would keep her young forever. But then the queen becomes very sick while giving birth, so some guards find the flower and they give it to her to eat, and the queen survives, and the baby has magic hair because the flower is in her. And Mother Gothel is like, yo, no, I refuse to look old, thank you. So she steals the baby, puts her in a tower far away from everybody in the forest, and raises her as her own child named Rapunzel. As she grows up, she's always seen these beautiful floating lanterns on her birthday in the sky, and it has been her absolute dream to go see them. But Mother Gothel always says no, because the world outside of the tower is actually awful, and everybody's gonna kill her immediately, so she cannot leave, because gaslighting. But then one day, a thief named Flynn Rider, that's not his real name, we're rolling with it, appears in her tower because he's running with a stolen crown, and he kind of freaks her out. But then they make a deal, and she says she'll give him back his crown if he brings her to see the lanterns and brings her back safely. But then they end up actually having the best day ever, and she also realizes that she's the lost princess, and then they kind of fall in love, and Mother Gothel gets really horrible, and she tries to kill Flynn, and he almost dies, but as he's falling, he cuts Rapunzel's hair so that she won't be Mother Gothel's slave anymore, and then Rapunzel cries over his body, but the last magic that was in her hair came through her tears, so then she's revived, and then she gets reinstated as princess, and they live happily ever after. Also, there's a chameleon, and a very, very spunky horse who I love. That seemed like I covered all the things. Sure, so what's the original story, you may ask? Well, it's really not like that one, really at all, honestly, but to be fair, I don't think that they wanted it to be very close to the original just based on the fact that they named the film Tangled rather than Rapunzel. But anyway, this is one of the stories interpreted and written down by the Brothers Grimm. We have spoken about their story before. They were wacky guys and I love them very much. You can watch that video up here. And the story was first published in 1812. The story begins with a couple who had long wanted a child, and finally the woman was pregnant. They lived next door to an evil witch whose name was Frau Gothel, and she lived alone, and she had a huge garden. These are now known today as angry lesbians. And the wife could see some Rapunzel plant in the garden, so she really longed for this plant for some reason, so much so that the longing made her really, really, really sick. So her husband climbed over the wall and stole some Rapunzel. I looked it up. It's a type of flower in green. It might be a root vegetable or green or a flower. Everything I read said something different, but also all three of those things can be in the same plant. So I don't know which part you eat, but the flowers are pretty. And she ate it and she got a little better, so he went back to take more. Except this time the witch caught him and she was very angry, and so she said, you know what, fine, you can have as much Rapunzel as you so desire, as long as you give me your firstborn child, which I will raise and care for like a mother. And he just agreed to that on the spot without consulting his wife at all, which, was a choice. So anyway, Frau Gothel took the child, raised her as her own kid until the age of 12, and then she brought her to a tower and she locked her into it, which is only accessible by the witch when she climbed up the girl's hair. Rapunzel was sad to be in the tower, naturally as one would be, and so she sings a lot to try to make her happier. And one day a handsome prince overhears her singing, and he wants to climb up the tower to meet her, but he doesn't know how, so he waits and he watches and he sees the witch climb up Rapunzel's hair. So the next day he pretended to be the witch, says the same Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair, and he gets into her tower. And this works because she doesn't understand threats and she's never really met people, so she doesn't, yeah. But then he shows up on the top of her tower and she's a little freaked out by him because duh. But he ends up being really nice to her and she's suddenly super cool with it, and then he offers to marry her and she's like, yeah, sure, you'll probably be nicer to me than Mother Gothel ever was. And yeah. The thing, though, is that she didn't know how to get out of her tower, so she asked him to come visit every night and bring her a strand of silk so that eventually she would be able to create one of those, like, bedsheet ladder things, which, sure, creative, love it. Alternatively, you could A, cut your own hair and use that. B, do you not have bed sheets or clothes? And C, hey, Mr. Prince, you probably have a whole army and a ladder and other things that you could probably use to get her out of the tower. But sure, let's go with this plan. So they saw each other every evening and everything was going fine until one day Rapunzel was like, hey, evil witch, why is my waist getting bigger? I don't understand. To which Gothel realized that Rapunzel was pregnant, meaning that she had either been seeing a man or she was about to give birth to baby Jesus. And Gothel figured that probably the man thing would make more sense. So she got really angry and she cut off all of Rapunzel's hair and she tied it to the tower to make it look like the tower was still had the princess in it to trick the prince, and then she abandoned the girl deep in the forest, which is nice. And then the prince fell for the trick. He got into the tower where the witch said, the girl's dead, she's gone forever, you're never going to see her again, get over yourself. And he was so upset that he, how do we say this pleasantly? Yeeted himself out of the tower window face first. Miraculously, he survived, but his eyes got destroyed by thorns, which I really don't want to think about the logistics of because that's really gross and I don't like eyes. But then he wanders aimlessly in the forest and he's really sad and forlorn because you know? But one day he hears a familiar singing voice in the forest and he finds Rapunzel living there with the twins she'd given birth to. Which, imagine not knowing what pregnancy or birth is and then giving birth to twins alone in the middle of a forest. That sounds horrible. But anyway, they reunite and she hugs him and cries and her tears are all magical, so he's no longer blind, and then he brings her and the children back to the kingdom where they are welcomed and they live happily ever after. The end. That is not, however, the original story. I've tricked you a little bit because turns out the story, the original fairy tale is likely based off of a real 3rd century woman who would become known as Saint or Santa Barbara. Basically, her dad realized that she was the most beautiful of people and he didn't want her to get unwanted suitors, so he decided to lock her in a tower so no man could ever see her. Still many men tried to fight for her and talk to her and wanted to marry her, but she ended up converting to Christianity instead, which her pagan father was really mad about, and so he tried to kill her, but then she prayed and an extra hole was appeared in the tower, so she was able to escape. But then he caught up with her and he beheaded her later on, so that's rough. And then apparently directly after that he got struck by lightning. So because of that, she became the patron saint of lightning and explosives, and then by extension artillerymen and miners and gun people. The more you know. Are artillerymen gun people? I don't know. Now, what are Rapunzel's autistic traits? Again, we're going to have to go more with the Disney version as we usually do because the original one, she's kind of a hollow character who's just there for a lesson to be put through. But I think still in that one, you can see how easily trusting she is. You could also argue that a lot of her unawareness in social situations and general just naivete is the result of her being locked in a tower for most of her adult life and child life. I fully agree with you, but also we're gonna ignore that. We're gonna say it's the autism. Okay, let's just like the tower doesn't exist. It's just the autism. She sees the world as so bright and colorful and wonderful and is always dreaming and creating. And when she gets excited, she bounces and she does little stims, which is so great because she's mostly happy and she's delightful. She really struggles with the moral dilemma of doing what she wants, which is leaving the tower and what Mother Gothel tells her to do, and is like, I'm a terrible person for doing a bad thing. And again, I know this is probably more due to the tower and the gaslighting than anything, whatever. But the way that she walks into the Snuggly Duckling and is like, hi strangers, what's your biggest dreams? I would love to hear what they are, when they're literal like axe murderers, is my favorite possible thing because I know for a fact that I have metaphorically done that several times over in the exact same manner. It's truly beautiful and truly relatable. Also, she's closer with animals than she is with humans, which is a very autistic thing. She just has this whimsical air about her all the time that feels like the essence of a happy autistic. Like, I cannot explain it better than that, so I hope that makes sense, and I know that it didn't, but the way that autistic people exist in the world when they're just delighted by everything, kind of like how Anne of Green Gables sees the world, is the most delightful and beautiful joy that I wish I could just bottle up, and she's just full of it, and I love it. Now, we're not going to go into issues of disability representation in regards to the prince in the original becoming blind when he lost his soulmate and then being able to see again when he eventually finds her, because disability is obviously just a narrative tool that is used to show when somebody's broken or missing a piece of them, and it goes away when you find that piece. But we're just gonna ignore that bit. That's a discussion for another day, but we are going to talk about the importance of narratives of the girl in the tower. Now, in our current world, the princesses that are left behind in the tower, that's the kind of story that people don't really care for. It feels like it's anti-feminist to have, you know, the poor, helpless, fainting maiden locked in the tower waiting for her prince to come and save her. We naturally are going to turn more towards the stories where the princesses can do anything men can do, and they kick butt, and they have, you know, a lot of spunk. And growing up, I was always the exact same way. People always compared me to Rapunzel because I always had really, really, really long hair, and it annoyed me because of all princesses, that one doesn't have a lot of agency. I mean, she has a lot of agency in Tangled, but that's only after she realizes that she's been gaslit for way too long and manages to get out of the situation. But I didn't cognitively understand the effects of gaslighting and how you don't get out of abusive situations because you don't understand what's going on when I was younger, so I was just mad at her. But anyway, as a disabled adult whose living space has been called Rapunzel's Tower by various caregivers and friends that I've had throughout my life, the maiden in the tower has agency in a different way that means something to me. Yes, sometimes she's lonely and forgotten and stranded and by herself and wishes that she could go places, but she can't because she's stuck in one spot. I know that princess. I am that princess. But on the other hand, people also want to find the maiden in the tower. She attracts people like a beacon. She's important and she inspires people, and in a crazy, ever-changing world, she is the calm center of the storm. She's a constant, a destination, a rest point, somebody to look out for, even when she may feel like nobody would want to visit or listen or stay or even spend time with her. And that's something that I've personally really held onto because it reminds me that I can have agency by going out and taking on the world, but I can also have agency by just existing and doing what I need to do, because inevitably the people who need to be in my life will come to me as well. So, I don't know, those are just some musings on the topic. I would love to know what you have to say about all of this in the comments. Why is that airplane so loud? Also, please let me know what princess you want me to analyze next. I have no ideas. And as always, thanks for listening, thanks for learning. Remember, it's never too late to start over, and I look forward to seeing you, my dear, in the next one.